Its third week, the Philippines has been exporting goods to the U.S. with 19% tariffs tacked upon entry, while U.S. soybean, wheat, automobiles, and pharmaceuticals are imported into the Philippines with zero tariffs. With us now for more, live from Davao, is George Manzano, economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. He is also former commissioner of the Philippine Tariff Commission. Good to see you again, George. Welcome to the program.
Happy to be here, Kathy. Good morning.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So we're entering the third week of Trump's 19% tariffs in force. In your channel checks, what's been the impact so far in Philippine exporters in terms of maybe logistics, supply chain, among others?
Well, at the moment, there is no schedule yet, so it's a bit sketchy. What are the detailed provisions? As you know, in tariff negotiations, the devil is in the details. What we have so far are the general pronouncements coming from the White House that we're going to be tapped 19%, and that we have a few U.S. Imports in certain sectors that will come in at duty-free. Note, however, that the 19% reciprocal tariffs is on top of prevailing tariffs, so it's just not 19%. If you have a 5% tariff already prevailing, the total tariff would be the additional 19 over the 5%, so make it 24%. And that's quite a hefty hike in terms of exports to the U.S., especially because most of our exports to the U.S. are either duty-free or in very low tariff categories.
So does that justify then the move of exporters, of PhilExport, to lower their own targets for electronics exports under the Philippine Development Plan?
Yes, in the sense that there is no upside. All the tariffs are up in the U.S. We have not seen a tariff reduction in any part of the world in a very substantial way. This is really a very great disruption. And more than that, it's not only the increase in tariff, but its effect on investments in the Philippines exporting industries, especially if the market is the United States. If factories are not going to be coming in here because of the prospects of market access to the U.S. is quite clouded, then we don't expect investments to flow, at least in the same fervor as they did in the past, simply because the demand has, by a stroke of a pen, has diminished. We only hope that semiconductors will still be exempt, because that's really one big chunk of our export interest to the United States.
All right, so as we hope for the best, what about consumption demand? Could that actually be a tailwind, because zero tariff concessions on some of the four products include soy and wheat? That could be inputs to agricultural products. That could mean lower prices for consumers here.
Yeah, true. That would mean lower prices for consumers, but it does not necessarily translate into higher import bills, simply because what the duty-free entry of U.S. imports, let's say in wheat or soy, will simply take away the markets of our other exporters to the Philippines. So this is what you call trade diversion, unless, of course, the prices will be very low, in which the demand for the Philippines will increase for these particular items. But we see a change in the share of the U.S. in our imports, basically to go up higher. At the same time, we have to look also at the existing tariff rates on, let's say, cereals or soybeans or pharmaceuticals that are going to be duty-free. They're not really that high. I think wheat would be 3%, so it may mean that the U.S. will be able to export more wheat at the expense of our imports of wheat coming from Turkey, for that matter.
So we haven't got any more details to go with, but Secretary Federico did tell reporters a month ago that the Philippines remains committed to talking with the U.S. in pursuit of a bilateral deal, such as a free trade agreement. But what are the chances at this stage of an FTA?
An FTA, from the nature of an FTA means that both parties will have to lift their tariffs so that there will be freer flow of goods. But that will be inimical to the objectives of President Trump in order to rebalance its trade with many countries, including the Philippines. Because if there's going to be an FTA, chances are the U.S. will be deficitary again in trade with respect to the Philippines.
Just as a final point, the call centers, services exports are going to be hit if indeed the Keep Call Centers America Act does get enacted into law. Have you done up the numbers and what sort of an impact, and could it even be bigger than what we just talked about as the deterrents that we have in the export sector?
Yes, actually, there is already a cloud hanging over the BPO industry, and that's the threat from artificial intelligence substituting some of the tasks done currently by call centers. I think the industry has much to talk about that. But at the same time, this is also another shock that's in the works on how it will impact the demand for our call centers, because we are one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, service providers of call centers in the world, and we're employing a lot of workers in that particular industry. So certainly, if the Call Centers in America Act will come into fruition, we expect a lowering of demand for that industry. However, the demand will not be across the board, meaning not all industries will leave the Philippines, because the act, I think, uh, will only not force all U.S. companies, that it only affects those U.S. companies that get federal grants or contracts, and those which are private sector only firms will be less hit, no, in that sense. But this will, of course, put pressure on the industry and to diversify markets. At the same time, it will put pressure on the industry to upskill, to basically go up the ladder of value added. No? Those that cannot be easily replaced by call centers. No? We're talking about specialized bank office supports and so on.
It's certainly one to watch, services exports apart from electronics exports. Thank you so much for the context and insights, George Manzano of the
Thank
UAMP.
you. Thank you.